Welcome, everybody, to the Jim Acosta Show. It is Friday, and as you can see, joining me on this Friday show is the great Mehdi Hasan. Mehdi, great to see you. Thanks for coming on. And I was just going to tell the viewers here, Trump is returning from his trip to the Middle East, where he had to do a lot of work. So, of course, he now is tired and in need of a long nap. But instead, he's spending his time on his social media like an iPhone addicted teenager, attacking everybody who calls him names and doesn't like him. And while so much of DC has been on the subject of cognitive decline this week, I think it's
Yes.
time to ask ourselves, and all of the folks here in Washington who are obsessed with this subject, is Trump sounding normal to you? I'm just going to read a couple of Truth Social posts, Betty. He was on Truth Social earlier today attacking Taylor Swift, T Swift. He said, "Has anyone noticed that since I said I hate Taylor Swift, she's no longer hot?" And on Bruce Springsteen, I see that highly overrated Bruce Springsteen goes to a foreign country to speak badly about the president of the United States. Never liked him, never liked his music, and or his radical left politics. Just a pushy, obnoxious jerk. I mean, uh, I- Mehdi, where do we start? But these are the ramblings of somebody who is not
Yes.
normal.
When you said, does Trump sound normal? And Jim, thanks for having me on your show. Enjoying seeing all your Substack success.
Great
When
to
you
see you.
said, when you said, does he sound normal? I mean, he sounds like Trump. So in that sense, he's normal. It's not like he's taken a turn for the worst. This is Trump. He's been like this for a while. Maybe not in the 80s or 90s, but he's been like that since Trump term one, and he's obviously escalated Trump term two. You're right to talk about the context here. And Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson have this book out on Biden's health and the alleged cover-up, which is all fine. Legitimate story. It was a legitimate story last year and this year. The problem is context, right? It's very hard to have a serious conversation about whether Joe Biden had cognitive decline when the current president is ranting about groceries to the dictator in the UAE, right? He spent a long
Yeah.
time telling the sheikh in the UAE, did you know that this word called groceries, it's an old word, I brought it back.
What is
like
that?
This,
What is that all
the
about?
new obsession. I don't know. I want to read a long, deep dive from the Atlantic or the New Yorker into why is Trump obsessed with groceries. Remember, it used to be flushes and shower pressure. Now it's
Yeah.
groceries. He thinks he invented the word groceries or brought it back. Apparently, none of us went to get groceries until Trump told us to use the G word.
He's never been shopping for groceries, is my guess. That's what it is.
Yes.
And so he thinks it's this old-timey word or something from yesteryear. And when it's just, this is what I don't know. I use that word all the
I
time.
use the word every day. I use it in the UK. I use it in the US. But look, this guy, the context is he is ranting about Bruce Springsteen's skin on his social media platform. He's
Yeah.
president of the United States. I have said for many years that if somebody got onto the metro, the subway, the bus, the London Underground, sat next to you and started ranting about Bruce Springsteen's skin or about being Lord of the world or the reincarnation of
Yeah.
Jesus, which is stuff that Trump has said, if they ranted to you about shower pressure and toilet flushes, you would get up and move to a different seat. In this country, we gave that person nuclear codes, right? That is where we are in 2025, an ongoing episode of idiocracy. I don't know how many of your viewers watched him on News Nation recently, where he was asked about Harvard to comment on academic freedom at Harvard, and he went on a long rant about Harlem, right? This is who he is. And it's insane to me that we spent so much time talking about Joe Biden's age or dementia or cognitive decline when there's a guy in the White House right now who is just clearly needs a 25th Amendment intervention.
No, and speaking of, recent interviews and so on, the interview that I always seize upon is the one he did with ABC, where he was
Yes.
insisting that
Yes,
Kilmar
on the
Abrego
knuckles.
Garcia's knuckles had MS-13 tattooed on them. And and Terry Moran did a great job and everything. He was just
No.
fine. That was good.
I'm going to disagree with you.
You didn't like that?
He didn't
But
do it.
my
He
thing
didn't do
is,
it. He
well,
said
my
to
thing is, I
Trump,
would have just thrilled down on that moment. But go ahead. You go
in
ahead.
that moment, he said, let's agree to disagree. Jim, a
You're
journalist
right, you're
cannot
right.
say, we agree to disagree on whether the sky is blue, whether gravity exists, whether up is down, black is white. The guy.
This is why I
the
like you,
President of the
man.
United
I'm
States-
trying to be nice, and you're like, the hell with it. Let's just call it
I
out.
think a lot of our journalists, present company excluded, have failed us on Trump in recent years.
Yeah. No, I hear you. No, but the thing that and I know you probably would have done this too, Mehdi. To me, that's just a moment where you say, "Wait, what?" And you just keep going and say, "But
Yes.
sir,
Yes.
this we're talking about the real world, and in the real world, anybody with a brain knows that those things are not tattooed on his knuckles."
He was
Don't
trying to
you
move
know
on,
that?
Jim. The really annoying thing, I was dying as an interviewer myself watching this clip, is Trump is giving him gold dust. This is a great moment. The President of the United States is showing you he's delusional in this moment. You're sitting in the Oval
Right.
Office with an unhinged president. And Terry Moran is trying to give Trump an out. Trump is digging this hole. And
Yeah.
Moran's trying to help him out and saying, let's talk about Ukraine. I don't even want to talk about this, Mr. President. Can we talk about Ukraine? And Trump's like, no. 7 times he insists that MS-13 was literally tattooed on Kilmar Abrego Garcia's knuckles. He didn't understand what photoshopping was. He literally thought, I mean, for me, as a journalist, I would think this is a great moment. I have a historic moment where I'm sitting with a president who's having a meltdown. It's almost like if you were interviewing Joe Biden and he was saying, as he was in that debate, and you were trying to change the subject and bring it onto safer terrain. Look, Trump's mental illness and cognitive decline and intellectual lack of intellect, it's almost baked in, right? Jim, you and I have talked about this before. The problem with covering Trump is we grade him on a curve, we normalize the abnormal, we say it's Trump being Trump, take him seriously, not literally, or literally, not seriously. He has all these passes that we all give him, all of us, journalists, members of public, we all go, oh, well, and he gets away with things that no other person could get away with. Liking this video? Then don't just watch, hit like, share, and subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a video or live show. But if you want early access to exclusive content, then you have to head to Zeteo.com and subscribe now. You'll be supporting fearless, independent journalism.
But Mehdi, one reason why that is, in my view, and maybe you share this view as well, is that you live in a consequence-free environment, basically, if you go after Joe Biden. Like, if you go after Joe Biden, he's not going to call the FCC on you, you know, he's not going to slap you with a $300 million bullshit lawsuit. If you go after Donald Trump and you raise these issues, he wants to shut everything down. You know, if Bruce Springsteen says one thing on a tour, you know, he sends threatening messages over True Social and so on. And so it's just, you know, there's no price to pay by going after Joe Biden. To me, it's just sort of like, you know, I don't know. I think it's kind of an easy thing to say, or, you know, but yeah.
I think that's a fair point. I do think, Trump definitely gets special rules that don't even apply to other Republicans. Like, I don't think Ted Cruz or Ron DeSantis can get away with what Trump gets away with. He is sui generis. It is he is a unique figure in our public life, in our modern history, that he gets to get away with things no one else gets away with. He gets to be a convicted criminal in the Oval Office, and we're all supposed to just forget that.
Well, exactly. And here's another thing, too. I mean, put this under the heading if Joe Biden did this or Barack Obama did this. I mean, you know, he's also probably trying to distract from another no good, horrible week, this time sucking up to Mohammed bin Salman, whining about how much he deserves a free $400 million plane from the Qataris while his sons are building new resort properties in the Middle East. The way he was slobbering all over those dictators in the region had me thinking, okay, first of all, get a room, fellas. But in the Wall Street Journal, I'll give credit to the Wall Street Journal here. They went sort of line by line, all of the things he said, slobbering over these dictators. I like you too much, he said to Mohammed bin Salman. He described Syria's president as attractive and tough. You're a magnificent man, he said to Qatar's ruling emir, that they were tall, handsome guys and his family. What the hell is what is going on?
It sounds cliched. It sounds cliched, but it's true, which is Trump loves dictators. I know it sounds like a partisan talking point or a Democratic attack on Trump, but it's just a fact, right? He's always loved autocrats, right? Even in his first term, he went on Fox and he had just come back from meeting Kim Jong-un in his trip and he said, when Kim comes out, his people stand up to attention. Why don't our people do that for me? So he's always wanted that. He craves that. He goes and meets Xi Jinping and he says, why can't I have what they have? And by the way, he's trying to have what they have. He's having a big military parade in Washington, D.C. on his birthday. Oh, it's really for America. No, it's for him. He's having a very expensive $45 million parade. I don't know where Doge and Elon Musk are, but he's having a $45 million parade because he loves this shit, right? He loves meeting autocrats, coming back home saying, how can I do it in America? He gets annoyed that in other countries they can shut down the media and he can't shut down the media in the same way. The Middle East tour is a classic example of that. He's loving the autocrats, he's making money in the process, and he's, again, getting away with stuff that Obama, Biden, no. If Barack Obama had taken a photo, Jim, standing in the middle of the Saudi crown prince and the former leader of Al-Qaeda right? Republicans would have impeached him the following morning, and he would have been assassinated the following night, right? That's just a fact, right? There's no doubt in my mind that Obama would. Remember, Obama slightly bowed his head to the Saudi king as a part of royal, and Republicans lost their mind. Here is Trump, as you say, slobbering on MBS, saying he's a great guy. I don't know how he doesn't sleep. He works all the time. He's my friend. Let's forget the fact that he killed a journalist, according to the CIA, who was living in Virginia.
Well, at one point, Trump said to Mohammed bin Salman, "I don't know how you sleep at night." And I thought to myself, you know what? That is something I would like to say to Mohammed bin Salman.
In a different context. Yes,
as dishonest 100%. As Donald Trump is, I say sometimes he's accidentally very candid. But the other thing we need to bring up, this just came in, Mehdi, NBC News alert. Supreme Court rules Trump administration must give Venezuelans more time to challenge deportation under Alien Enemies Act. So that's interesting that the Supreme Court is telling Trump to pump the brakes a little bit on sending people to that gulag in El Salvador. But I mean, I have to ask you about this because, these are the things that, again, it is insane. We have to call it insane. It goes back to the conversation you and I were having, which is you just have to call this stuff out. Apparently, the Department of Homeland Security is considering something along the lines of the Migrant Hunger Games or Migrant Survivor, a television show in which immigrants would compete for potential U.S. citizenship. What do you think of this? And what are your thoughts on? Because you and I haven't talked in a while on this mass deportation madness that we're seeing in this country right now.
So just on the Migrant Hunger Games, this is the kind of stuff which, if you and I had said on air last year, if you and I had said at CNN or MSNBC that when Trump comes back, he's going to do a Migrant Hunger Games, people would have said, "Oh, TDS, you guys have Trump doing. You guys think the sky's going to fall in. You guys are obsessed with it." But he does the craziest shit. And to be fair to him, when he says I'm going to do crazy, he does it. Like, there's one thing he's consistent on. It's being racist and insane. Stuff he's been consistent on. He loves reality TV shows. He loves deporting immigrants. He's really racist. Like, this has everything. This a TV show which would force people to compete. The dehumanization is just insane, and it feeds into the broader, more serious point, which, as you raised, is this policy of mass deportation, empowering a lawless rogue agency like ICE to go after American citizens. Forget legal immigrants and illegal immigrants.
Absolutely,
undocumented. They've kidnapped kids, American children, one of them with cancer, and sent them out of the country.
And that's a good point, Mehdi, because we go after the Russians for kidnapping the Ukrainian kids and taking them out of the country and saying these are war crimes. This is inhumane.
Yeah.
And we are picking up little kids with cancer, U.S. citizens, and saying that.
And by the way, and just to be clear, the Trump administration claimed, the father didn't want the kid, so we had to send the kid with the mother. A Trump judge says, no. I suspect that this kid did not get due process. And it annoys me when media organizations, in good faith, and in a hurry, say stuff like U.S. citizen child deported. You cannot, by definition, deport an American, right? You cannot. Deportation is the deportation is an act
call it
to
a
take
removal,
a foreigner.
but you're right. That's
call it
correct.
Removal, call it an expulsion, call it a kidnapping of a child. I think it's horrific what's been happening on this front. I think it goes to the core of the fascism and lawlessness of this administration, which is empowering federal agencies, armed agents in masks, unidentified, without badges, going out on the streets, literally rounding people up, including legal immigrants and American citizens. They just stopped Hassan Pike, a very prominent left-wing journalist, Twitch star, streamer, American citizen. Asked him, "Do you like Donald Trump? What do you think of Israel?
What was that all about?
What's your views on Hamas?" This is what they're doing, right? They want to make an example of people. They want to send a message. They want us to live in fear. And look, on the deportation,
grabbing students for op-eds that they've written and so on.
The free speech party, Jim. You were at CNN for the entire 2000s, where right-wingers were obsessed with free speech on campus. And the first thing they do when they
don't police
power
our
back,
speech. Yeah.
Completely, they're locking up people for op-eds. They're locking up people for being married to the wrong person, apparently. They're locking up people for all sorts of speech crimes. Marco Rubio is the biggest single threat to free speech in America since Joe McCarthy. I actually think he's worse than Joe McCarthy, because Joe McCarthy did not have the power, with the stroke of a pen, to simply remove people from the United States because they wrote something Marco Rubio didn't like.
At least McCarthy was ideologically consistent, as far as I know.
That's true too. Rubio has no spine, of course. He's using a 1952 law, an obscure part of a 1952 law that allows the Secretary of State to simply deem someone to be a threat to American foreign policy and remove them from the country. country. And as you
Yeah.
mentioned, Trump is using the Alien Enemies Act, which is a 1798 law, which is supposed to be used for invasions. Even a Trump judge in Texas, Jim, said recently, there is no invasion, and this gang is not part of the Venezuelan government, which, by the way, is
Right.
not invading the US. So when Stephen Miller goes around saying all these Marxist judges, these are Trump judges in many cases saying,
Right.
whoa, you've gone too far.
Exactly. And, going back to if Biden had done this and Obama
No,
had done this, I mean, Stephen Miller going out in front of the White House, what was this, a week ago, and saying, well, we're flirting with the idea of doing away with habeas corpus. Can you
yeah.
imagine Ron Klain going
Yes.
out in the driveway in front of the West Wing and saying something like that, and heads not exploding on Fox News for a week straight,
But they're fine with it, and what they're not,
Yeah.
they're fine with the entire assault on our constitution. This is the party that during my childhood, I lived in the UK, but I remember reading about
Yeah.
Americans on the right being obsessed with black helicopters. You remember that, Jim?
I
Black
remember that.
helicopters coming to
Of
get us.
course.
Do you remember all the Ruby Ridge and Waco and ATF?
Branch
This was
Davidians, absolutely.
the right was paranoid about armed American government agents coming to your doorstep. Now, Pam Bondi says ICE have the right to come into your home without a warrant. Nobody says anything. Now,
Yeah.
Stephen Miller says, no habeas corpus. Nobody says anything. Now,
Yeah.
Marco Rubio says, I don't like what you say. I'm going to remove you from the country. No one says anything. They don't care about, and I just said this earlier to our good friend Wajad, they
Yeah.
don't care about any amendment to the Constitution except the Second Amendment. The rest,
Yeah.
they're willing to trash.
I love Wajahat, and he and I are both Star Wars nerds. I don't know if you are too, but
So am
he and
I. Andor has many lessons for our current
Andor.
time.
What do you think of Andor? Let's say
I haven't finished it. Please
Oh,
don't
you
ruin it. I haven't
finished it.
finished it. I'm a slow
Okay.
one, so I'm
Which
still
episode are you
working my
on?
way through.
I finished it
Episode 4.
last night because it was one of those nights where I didn't have to do anything, and that happens like 4 times a year. And so I was like, I'm going to get through the end of Andor season 2, and it's phenomenal, and it is absolutely an allegory for our times.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to finish watching it when
So,
you can.
did
You're
you
very
see-
busy, I know.
Talking of Star Wars, did you see
Yeah.
when on May the 4th, when the White House official account, which has now become basically a troll account for
It's a
Trump
troll
and
account.
MAGA, they put out some
Yeah.
offensive memes about migrants. On May the 4th, they put out a picture of Trump all buffed up because they can never show Trump's real body. He wears a baggy suit to hide him. He always has these weird memes where he's like super muscular, which he
Why
never
is that? It's very strange.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
So much psychology to be done about MAGA there. But what's
Let's not
interesting is
unpack
in the image, he has a red lightsaber. So it's
A
like
red lightsaber, exactly.
So you're
I
admitting that
pointed
he's
this
a
out on my
Sith
show.
Lord. You're
Wajahat
admitting
and
he's
I-
a villain.
Exactly, he's a Sith Lord, and maybe that's how they roll in the White House social media team. They accidentally tell you what's going
Yep.
on.
In between the
But
typos.
I saw that and I was like, "You guys, you're giving away the plot here." But okay, so we won't get into Andor because you need to finish that. But
I need to finish
the
it,
other
sorry.
thing we have to talk about, Mehdi, while we still have time, I want to talk about something that you've written about, which is your interviewing and debating techniques. I want to get to that because I've always been interested in talking to you about that. But we have to talk about the big, beautiful blunder in the
Yes.
House. Republicans are now caving and signing against Donald Trump on this big, beautiful tax giveaway to the rich. It's basically an economic plan to screw the poor. The New York Times has a story out on this, that the Penn-Wharton budget model, which I think that's the business school that Donald Trump claims he went
Yes.
to,
That his dad
nonpartisan
got him into.
scorekeeper, says that people who make less than $51,000 a year would see their after-tax income fall as a result of the Republican proposal beginning in 2026. However, if you're in the top 1%, including those with incomes over 4.3 million, and that may include you, Mehdi, I'm just kidding, no, they would gain on average more than $389,000 in after-tax income. That is pretty extraordinary stuff, and it lays bare what is going on here. Talk about giving away the plot.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, let's be fair to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He is a liar. He lies with almost every breath, but he hasn't lied about this, right? He told his people, elect me,
Yeah.
give me money, and I'll cut your taxes. He said this many times in Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
There are multiple videos of him doing events in Mar-a-Lago where he says, you guys, you're going to be great when I'm back in. I'm going to cut your taxes. So to be fair to Trump, he was not lying on that moment.
Yeah.
And he is trying to cut their taxes. He's trying to do another Trump tax cut that he did in his first term, which goes disproportionately to millionaires and billionaires. And they try and pay for it by cutting spending for the poor. They want to gut Medicaid, which Trump... Now, here's where Trump is lying. Trump spent 10 years saying, I won't touch Medicaid. He said earlier this year, if they bring me a bill with Medicaid in it, I will veto it. Well, this bill has Medicaid cuts in it. Lots of them, billions of dollars. And by the way, a lot of people on Medicaid are Trump supporters. I should point out. A lot of Trump voters on Medicaid in Alabama and Mississippi and Texas. So they're cutting Medicaid to fund.
He always seems to screw his people the worst, but go ahead. Yes.
Yes. He's cutting Medicaid in order to cut taxes for the rich. Here's what's interesting. When we talk about Republican splits, the Republican Party in Congress is split on how much to screw the poor. That's all they're split on. Right? The debate between the Freedom Caucus and the rest of the party is, you guys are cutting Medicaid, and we're not going to vote for this bill because we want to cut it more. That's what Chip Roy and the others are saying. So that's the weird, like on the what's the phrase, on the pin, on the head of a needle,
dancing on the head of a pin.
That's it. So it's Friday afternoon. That's what they're doing. They're arguing about, should we cut Medicaid 800 billion, 600 billion, or 400 billion? That's the argument. They're all in favor of the tax cuts.
And I will tell you, Mehdi, and this is already, me saying this is giving me an idea, which I'll say in a second, but it's like the tariffs. I've been to a gazillion Trump rallies. Within a 5-mile radius of a Trump rally is a Walmart. So the tariff thing, when the CEO of Walmart comes out and says, guess what, folks, you're getting fucked. I mean, that to me should have been like a red flare shot over the White House to warn them that this tariff thing is disastrous for them politically. The other thing, too, is that I've been to a lot of Trump rallies, and I would guess that about half of the people who go to those rallies are on Medicaid or Medicare. They're on some kind of government health care, whether they realize it or not.
But they don't think it's government health care. Do you remember the Obama town halls? Do you remember the famous sign when Obama was doing Obamacare and said, "Government, get your hands off my Medicare"? That was one of the most iconic images from the Tea Party protest. So unfortunately, the right have found a way to create a reality-free zone in which they cocoon a lot of their followers, and they, drip feed them Breitbart and Fox and the rest of the crap that they get, and they have no clue that the government actually helps their daily lives. The government actually helps them with education and healthcare and other social services. And they think that Medicaid.
Don't forget that, which Elon Musk crippled with Doge. Yes.
But they think Medicaid is just for poor black people, and therefore, why should I support it? I'm a white guy. And this, this goes back to LBJ. LBJ made the point at the time that this is the best way to rob your pocket is, point to someone below you. Get the white working class person to think that his enemy is the immigrant or the Mexican or the black guy below him on the ladder, not the rich guy who is fucking him, as you said, with the tax cut. So that's what the Republican Party's always been, even in the age of MAGA, even in the kind of complete transformation of the Republican Party to be pro-Russia and anti-free trade. One thing has remained consistent: pay for tax cuts for rich people by screwing over poor people. That they've been consistent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And my thinking about this is making me think maybe Mehdi and I should go to a Trump rally one of these days, and maybe not go inside, but at least talk to the people outside. Because I would love to have a camera rolling while you are talking to people about this kind of stuff and pointing this out.
Are you on Medicaid? Are you on Medicare?
Exactly.
Do you know how much you're going to... You should have a calculator. You should have one of those big, like, lottery-style calculators. Yeah. Be like, calculating how much money that person's going to lose. Actually, Democrats should do this, Jim. I mean, a Ro Khanna
They really should. No, I mean...
Should go to a Trump rally, stand outside,
that's right,
and just calculate how much each person entering the rally is going to lose.
These members, these Dem members like Swalwell and others who are going to Republican districts, go to a Trump rally. Some lady, a nice lady who commented on our conversation here said, "Why not go inside the Trump rally?" I will tell you, because I've been to these things, my ears will not take it. He plays the music so loud at these things. It is an assault on the senses, and you and I would not be able to have a conversation.
I'm less worried about the musical assault and more the rally goers assault on someone like me.
The actual assaulting that might happen. That's very true. Which is why we would stay on the outside where we have plenty of room to run. But anyway, Mehdi, before we get going, I did want to ask you, you've written about this, you've talked about this many times, but I have not been able to talk to you about this. Why do you love debating? What is it about your interviewing skills that you think you would pass on to folks out there? Because I get journalism students watching and stuff like that from time to time too. What's your special sauce, if you don't mind giving away the special recipe to Coca-Cola or KFC or whatever? What is the Mehdi Hasan rule here?
I wrote a book, which thankfully a lot of people bought, so I have given away a lot of it, called Win Every Argument. Yes, I do love debating. I've been debating since I was a kid. I turned it into a career. I have very few skills in life, Jim, apart from a big mouth and ability to argue, as my wife and kids will testify. So, yes, look, I love doing things. And when I came to the US, one of the ways I became known and ended up working at MSNBC is because some of my interviews went viral. Look, I would say that I love debating because since I was a kid, I have seen it as a way of getting to the truth, batting around ideas, testing people's arguments, not just blindly, uncritically accepting whatever's handed down to you from a parent or a teacher or a religious or political leader, testing ideas and arguments, actually, I've learned a lot from losing arguments as well. Say, okay,
Yeah.
I didn't get that wrong. I didn't think that through. And as an interviewer, I have always been keen to challenge the person in front of me. I don't like interviewing, like people say, oh, wouldn't you love to interview Trump or Marjorie Taylor Greene? Like, actually, no, I actually enjoy
I was going
interviewing
to ask you
people.
that because I think I would want to sit down with Donald Trump. Just he's the president, and if you get a chance to
Of
do
course.
it,
No,
I
no, I
would
take
do
that.
it.
I meant more broadly,
Yeah,
like it's not an I do prefer the people. I interviewed Vivek Ramaswamy. A little bit more of a challenge. Whatever you think of the guy, he's a
yeah,
smart guy, slippery
yeah.
guy.
Oh,
So
I've interviewed him. Oh, yeah,
Eric Prince from Blackwater was one of my famous. I enjoy
yeah.
interviewing tough characters where we can have a back and forth. And look, I would say to people, journalism students, people involved in discussion, debate, you got to be prepared. You got to have
You
your
have to do
follow-up
it.
question ready. You got to bring your receipts. You can't just wing it. And to go back to Terry Moran, here's a classic example. If I was Terry Moran, I would have had that photo in my folder of the knuckles and raised it up there as a
And
moment
said,
to
"Are you
say,
sure about
this?
this?"
You
Yeah,
think this is real? Is there something wrong with you? So I do think you turn up to it. When I interviewed Vivek Ramaswamy and he said,
yeah.
well, you should check my tax returns. We had his tax returns. I held them up, highlighted, and he was like, there was an oh shit in his eyes. So I think, look, be prepared, do your homework, bring
Yeah.
receipts, I beg American interviewers, I beg Sunday morning hosts, ask follow-up questions. Don't just
Yes. Oh
move on to
God,
the
yes.
next
Please.
topic.
You cannot just take the first answer and keep going. I mean, especially in this day and age. I mean, they have talking points that are circulated well in advance. They've
Especially
rehearsed
when
these.
they
Yeah,
gaslight on every
yeah,
level and just say demonstrably untrue things like the
yeah,
Kilmar Abrego Garcia line. And I
yeah.
just worry that people at home are fed up. The Sunday shows are not doing so well. People are
I
fed
can't
up of
watch
the
them.
gaslighting. They're fed up of the lack of tough questioning. They're fed up of, the camaraderie and the friendliness. They want people in power to be a separate group from the people who hold the people in power to account. There's a lot of stuff on Sunday morning shows where it's like, oh, thank you, Senator, for coming on. Oh, how's the family? Great. People don't want that. People want the
Yeah.
journalists to hold the people in power to account. George Carlin said it best when he said, there's one big club and you and I ain't in it. And I think people are frustrated that's why Trump
That's
is doing well. That
yeah,
anti-establishment anger that he rides, even though he is the establishment, but he
yeah.
rides that genuine anti-establishment anger in America right now at the media, at politics, at some of our institutions.
Yeah, but I mean, but more and more, I feel like he is being revealed as a phony, and gosh, I don't know when it's going to actually fully happen. Perhaps it never will, but I do think people are catching on here, and they're starting to figure it out. The one thing that I do wonder, Mehdi, is what is going to take place in this media landscape over the next few years, because I do think the reason why you're doing so well at Zeteo, congratulations, 1 year
Thank you.
anniversary, and doing so well in all these other ventures of yours, is that people are drifting away from the corporate media model. And so the question becomes, what comes next? I mean, I've said to the folks at Substack, I think the next election will be a Substack YouTube election, where these kinds of platforms are going to be the place where the politicians are going to have to go as proving grounds. Not so. I mean, maybe the Sundays talk shows will still be there. The corporate media outlets will still be there, but folks will be coming more and more to these types of
But
places. Yeah,
I hope you're right. I would
yeah,
voice one word of caution,
yeah.
and perhaps on my base, I'm a bit of a pessimist. My
Mhm.
worry is if you look at the last election, which has been described as the podcast election, right? The Joe Rogan election, where Trump
Sure.
just threw himself into podcasts and Harris didn't really. But my bigger worry is when you talk about, for example, a podcast election or a YouTube election, politicians actually don't mind that because a lot of those conversations are quite soft for them, right? We
Well,
don't
that's
want to
true.
we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The fact that corporate media or cable news or Sunday shows aren't doing well doesn't mean you then give politicians a whole different set of shows, whether it's a YouTube show or a Substack show or a podcast, where they just get to come on and chew the fat and have fun and have a light conversation. We need somewhere where we can have tough conversations, challenging interviews, combative questions. That's what's
Yeah.
missing. That's my worry, that now you've got Republicans retreating to safe spaces at Newsmax and OAN and Fox and Joe Rogan, and then Democrats are going to find their own version of, where they can go, where no one will ask them any tough questions. That's bad for America.
Yeah. No, and I definitely think But there's a little bit of an ideological divide on this. I think Republicans and conservatives, the MAGA base, is they're much because of the Fox News experience over the last 30 years now.
Yes.
They're accustomed to this. Whereas
Oh,
I
yeah.
think
Snowflakes.
progressives are, for the most part, a bit more open-minded, are of the understanding that the press there serves a vital function, and that you have to subject yourself to tough questions
then
from
it's
time to time. Yeah.
But then it's asymmetric warfare, right? Democrats
Yeah.
willing to take
Yeah.
tough
Good
questions,
point.
while
Good
Trump
point.
and Republicans dodge it and go on podcasts on Fox. And then you're back to this situation where we began the conversation, where only Joe Biden's being held to account for his mental cognitive issues, whereas Donald Trump isn't, because he's being told by Sean Hannity every night, you're the greatest, you're the God's gift, etc.
Oh God, when Hannity goes out there to do cleanup on aisle 6,
Yes.
it's such a, I mean, he's compensated handsomely by Fox, and I guess that all makes it go down better. But my God, I mean, have some dignity, man. It's hard to watch.
It's like watching those cabinet meetings with Trump. Like, forget Hannity. What about
Oh
all the cabinet
God.
officials
Oh
who
my
say,
God.
we're so lucky God has blessed us to be sitting at this table opposite you, the
Yeah.
greatest leader of our time.
And
That
Penn Bondi
stuff, they'll
said
never wash that stench
he
off.
saved 200 million lives or something like
Yes.
that since Trump came in.
No, the best part of that is, Jim, she said a day before it was 120 million and everyone laughed at her. By the time she got to cabinet, it was 240 million. So obviously someone in Trump world told her it's not a big enough number. You need to go up if you're going to sit opposite the president.
120 million lives is not enough. It's got to be at least almost the size of the U.S. population as it stands right now. All right, Mehdi. Well, good. Have a great weekend. Hope you get some good groceries there. You bring them home, put the groceries in your refrigerator, and
And
marvel
God
at
bless
this.
Trump for giving me the vocabulary with which I can go shopping.
Exactly.
Jim, have a great weekend.
Great
Thank
to
you
see
for
you,
having
man.
me. Thanks, everyone. Did you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support our independent, unfiltered journalism, head over to Zeteo.com. Your support matters.